Hello, everybody. I'm Kipp Snow, Director of the Transportation, Distribution, and Logistics Institute at the Community College of Baltimore County.
Hey, everybody. Mike Singer, Community Manager of the Baltimore and Chesapeake Bay Shipwatchers. Welcome to Two Guys Talking Ship podcast. Man, I almost messed it up again. Episode 51. How you doing?
I'm doing all right. Did you have a good week?
Yeah.
Did you find your mug?
We did. Look at that.
Where was it at?
Buried in the
in that box.
Stuff coming back from Maritime Day.
Right.
Right where it was supposed to be. I just had to find the right bag, whatever.
Right where the shipping department right where the research department told you where.
Right, exactly where I knew where it was. I was going to find.
All right. Yeah, no, it was a pretty good week. This is the week in between vacations, so
same. How did we? Do we need to do more of this accidental vacation coordination thing?
Probably. we should have our weekly meeting so that we can go plan this out. That would be a novel idea.
Right, just stop making sense, Kipp. Stop it right now.
Exactly.
The podcast folks aren't used to that crap. Hey, so if you're new to the channel or the podcast, give us a like, subscribe, hit the bell to be alerted to new podcasts or videos as they come available. And I wanted to say, stick with us for a bit. Later on the podcast, big Key Bridge announcement.
All right, so why don't we go ahead and get into our shipping updates here?
All right, sounds good. So like I keep saying, we're just trying to figure out what's going on. We were talking about we were supposed to get 500 additional TEUs, like maybe March, April at the latest, and then the whole tariff thing happened, and how do you figure out what's going on or what isn't going on? And so we're reading these numbers every week. Let me just roll through. Oh, that's so cool. Look at this guy. So do I need to read the numbers now? Anyway,
no, go ahead and read them, and I'll kind of point out where they're at in the chart.
Yeah. So I'm just rolling through like the last 7 weeks, right? So 38.99 per day, 37.46 per day, 37.79 per day, 33.55. Is that dip there? Yes. 35.22, 36.25. 34.09. So this week was interesting because there were 3 days over 3,600 per day, and then Thursday and Friday took a little nosedive. So that's why, because that 34 would easily be 36 this week if there wasn't a tail off at the end of the week. And maybe it's just the ships they had scheduled that day, those 2 days weren't, a heavy load or whatever. But this is great because thank you for coming up with this because, I've only been talking about how much we've been talking about how we can't figure this out right? And so now, what did we see? What does that tell us? What do you?
Yeah, so I went back and just to start with the daily averages for FY or calendar year 25 here. I went back to January 1st or the week of January 4th and just plotted everything. We did, what isn't represented here. We know that February 1st has got a number that we have to adjust.
Yeah, so we fudged that in.
Yeah, but in order to give you a somewhat of a representation of what these numbers are, Mike, I know that you've been talking about, hey, look, there's a potential upswing, or we've got all of these dips over a short period of time. But when you extend that period of time out, we're kind of status quo, or staying within
you can see that there's not a serious trend really in either direction.
Right.
So when did they start talking about the tariffs? Was that kind of February or March? So maybe we can kind of see a little bit of right? And then maybe that was like a correction. Like what was that? Late April?
Yep.
And then another rebound, kind of like just how Sal Mercogliano said it was going to happen.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's not, right. Like you said, when you put it together in the frame of a year, there's a little wiggle and no serious trends in either way. So, wow, that's a
to me, it sounds like, I look
picture
at this.
says 1,000 words right there. Right.
Right.
Um,
It kind of maintains just a standard or a status quo, or what I would consider a strong operating model that exists. So I think one of the things I'm going to do is go back to the previous year's data, and I did get access to, I think it's through 2019, so 2019 to current. And I'm going to try to go and map
truck
out
transactions, that specific metric, really?
yeah.
Wow.
So I'm going to try to see if we can't get some year over year metrics that we can kind of gauge, maybe paint a little bit different picture to explain, how much volume is actually coming through the terminal there. It's quite significant. And if they are, I look at this standard trend of kind of a status quo, that just tells me that they know what they're doing. They're out there doing it.
Right. Now, what do you think about this? We were expecting an upward trend, right, of 500 TEU. So we forget the gentleman that we talked to at the port. And so he was saying, and at one of the port meetings, right? And he was saying that, hey, that's going to be pretty much 4,000. That addition of 500 is pretty much going to get us to 4,000. So I wonder if we can make the conclusion that traffic is a little down because we're not
compared to that goal. Yeah. I mean, if the port management is kind of forecasting, hey, we've got these contracts in place. We know these steamship lines are going to be calling on us. We know the expected volume over the year, so we are making this kind of what's the word I'm looking for here? Expectation that we are going to have 500 more on average TEUs coming in. But if that doesn't happen, then we're looking at, like, what are those other influences? So we've already talked about what some of those are. We talked about some of the tariffs. So it may be that adjustment from 500 more TEUs down to what we're showing on these metrics. Maybe that is the impact. We know that there have been some services that have been canceled or moved. The Empire service.
Right.
What won't be coming. So I know that there,
there was one that did come back, and I forget, was it 2 or 3 weeks ago? Was it 2 or 3 weeks before the podcast that I missed?
Gotcha. So some of these fluctuations may just be in par, and you don't see these huge downward trends or upward trends.
It's almost like when you're worried about the stock market, and then you go and you look at it, in a bigger picture, and you're like, okay, I was freaking out about this little dip, right?
Correct.
And look at kind of still doing its thing.
Still moving forward. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. But that's great. That's a great visual. Thanks for pointing that out. And I like to laugh at myself because like, how long we've been talking about these truck transactions, and how long did it take us to come up with?
Yeah.
Do you have any idea what episode that was?
A long time ago.
Yeah, like around 10, 15 or something, I'm guessing. Not really important, I guess.
So that's so we'll have some more components of those metrics that we'll be tracking. I'd like to show some of the year over year so we can get a little bit better sense.
Yeah, that would be cool. Really mean. And don't forget that monster online spreadsheet that the port has.
Correct.
Right? Yep. But I don't think truck transactions is in that one. They call it something else.
Yeah.
And one day, episode 100, we'll have a finite understanding of, there's all these different container metrics, and they're all worded a little bit differently, right? It's like It sure would be nice to have a better understanding of why each one of them are different. And anyway,
okay,
that's just the way my brain works.
You got some other port news.
Yeah, just some little comings and goings. So in the ready reserve fleet, subject easy for me to say, the Gary I. Gordon is back, sort of, in the Annapolis anchorage. You got a shot of that? You got a picture of that?
Sure do.
This is from our buddy David Seitz. It always takes these great pictures, even on a cloudy, overcast, I guess, evening here. So she's in the Annapolis anchorage. I think, don't we have 2 ships now at North Locust Point? The Pomeroy came in second, right? Gosh, how can I not remember this stuff?
There was some jockeying back and forth while you were gone.
And so there was.
Yeah, there was.
Well, wasn't that the one from Canton that went out?
I think that
happened right before I left, because remember they brought one of them out, and we thought that was everybody saying, what, Fred is leaving, but Joe comes out, and we're like, no, you're wrong, Joe is leaving. No, they bring Joe out, put him at the anchorage right in front of Seagirt because they needed to clear the space, and then they brought the other one out, and that one went south, and then they put the first one back. And I guess there's just not enough room to jockey them there. There's not enough channel.
Yeah, it was the Navy ship Charlton.
Thank you.
That's what it was.
Thank you.
Yeah,
so the Gary Gordon is in the Annapolis anchorage, and maybe it's coming to Canton, because I think there were 3 ships in Canton. Now there's only 2. So maybe the Gordon's coming back. I'm kind of really interested. You see these ships, then they sit around for so long. And then every once in a while they move around or trade one out. And I'm just, I'm fascinated by the logistics of, well, why is that one leaving? Well, why is this one coming in? And what led to that decision? And who knows what that darn answer is.
I know that when I was running the summer externship for the local teachers to learn about the industry, there was a couple of times that we took a field trip on a ready reserve fleet ship. Take a tour and try to see what's going on. And they mentioned that sometimes they have like your sea trials, or every so often they have to fire everything off and prove that they are ready to go in a moment's notice, and that they do have 72 hours to ramp up after a call is made to get the whole crew and all of their supplies that they need to carry out, and be underway. One of the things that I would just kind of say is just kind of watch what's happening in the theater at this point, and in the geopolitical arena. And sometimes these ships get activated as support or in preparation to something happening. So if one of these happens to fire off and leave pretty quickly, that may be what it is, or they may be trying to prepare for those types of situations. I can't confirm on this particular one. May just be, hey,
especially since it's coming back,
right? They may just be trying to move, clean up the parking lot a little bit, get everything organized just in case. So,
yeah, just my curiosity is always trying to figure out what exactly is the reason for these movements.
Sure. You sent me another picture.
Yeah, so this is another thing, the thing that may only interest Mike, is like they take, so over here on the right side of this picture, can you mouse over to that or something? Yeah, right. Behind that building is what looks like this giant container ship, and it's pretty big. What is it? 12,400 TEUs. And so this is a semi-regular thing, and we've talked about this before. I mean, semi-recent, semi-regular thing where they'll take a container ship and move it over and dock it at Dundalk Marine Terminal for one reason or another, either the one that's there hasn't left yet and they bring in one early, or the one that was there isn't ready to really leave yet, so they put it on Dundalk and bring the new one in. And it's just kind of interesting to me because I think, as I recall, there's, you can see it on the map where there's like a little cutaway where they show how they deepen that channel like alongside Dundalk Marine Terminal, which tells me that somebody had thought about this idea and planned it a long time ago. Because we keep talking about the Seagirt Loop, right? And Jennifer, Guthrie, the state representative, comes to the port meetings, and she gives us a little update on that. And it's this long process of, you got to figure out what you want to do, and then the Army Corps of Engineers needs to approve it, and then the Congress needs to approve it, and then they need to find the money. It's like this long 3 to 4 year process of just making it happen. So in those eyes, seeing the ships in this place lets me know that, gosh, they must have been thinking about this for years. And somebody said, hey, if we, this might solve one of our problems, and we might be able to be a little bit more fluid with our movements if we can just kind of tuck one over here and kind of dredge this out. Just knowing everything that goes into a plan just tells me that somebody was thinking about this for a really long time. So just because it's something new, I'm still almost shocked every time I see a container ship over there. Like, hey, that's right. They do this like once a month, or I'm sorry.
No. As many times as I've seen this shot before, I've seen a lot of ro-ro ships in the, in that location, but to see a container ship there is a little odd. So.
Yeah. And maybe we'll hear from a tug guy or something one day to kind of give us the big picture on that.
Sure.
And, what might be the top 3 reasons why this happens.
They may have some other activity that, kind of like what you're suggesting, because there may be, we do have limitations as to what has been dredged out, or, the full loop and what access is available. I mean, there probably is a legitimate reason why they're doing it.
Yeah.
Now, I think that the viewership may have heard from, the national news, or, about the Mexican Navy ship up in New York City.
Right. And it was leaving and somehow went backwards, and 2 sailors were, because, like this, all the sailors are up on the yard arms and all, on display as they leave. And, it's this dramatic thing. And then something horrible happened, and it went backwards and like snapped 100 feet off of these. So look at those. For you sailors that are cringing when Mike says the wrong thing, Mike at BaltimoreShipWatchers.com. So I think there are 4. I think it's yard arms. Is that the wrong? Lord, I apologize. Those 4 horizontal yard arms, I think they are, like, those are gone. That's how much I think got snapped off, and now this poor ship needs some major repairs. But let me just kind of read through this. Mexican Navy sailing training tall ship Cuauhtémoc, and I had to Google that and to find out how to pronounce it, because I came up with something and it was wrong. Was scheduled to visit Baltimore next summer for a maritime celebration, part of Sail 250, commemorating the country's 250th birthday, which is going to be a really big deal. It's going to be so cool. But after it hit the Brooklyn Bridge last month and killed 2 people and injured 22, its journey remains unclear. So the Mexican Navy training tall ship Cuauhtémoc was scheduled to visit Baltimore next summer for a maritime marine celebration, part of Sail 250, commemorating the country's 250th birthday. So, man, that's going to be a really big deal. Let me go ahead and read this other part. The ships will start in New Orleans, then make their way to Norfolk, Baltimore, and New York before hitting their final destination, Boston. Baltimore will be home to the ships, along with the accompanying festivals and air show. Woo! From June 24th to July 1st. So remember, the ship hit the Brooklyn Bridge last month and killed 2 people and injured 22. So we're not sure if it's going to make it because it needs extensive repairs. Now, what I think, it's at a yard in New York, and then I think they're leaving for another yard for the major repairs. I think it's what I read. Yeah.
So is it going to stay in the U.S. to be repaired, or not sure?
Don't know if I know those details. Sorry.
Well, for as far as the Sail 250 celebration, that's going to be a fantastic event. It sounds like they had a big presser this week on it. But I really hope that, especially with the folks that were injured and unfortunately those that passed away, I hope that they're able to get everything back together and get the ship back in operation.
Yeah. So what do you think of this? I just came up with this. Will there be any restrictions to this ship coming back into U.S. waters before the NTSB does? Because, those NTSB investigations take a year.
Right. Yeah, I don't know what would be involved with this, because it's, I'm sure there will be an investigation.
Right.
They can't sail until the thing gets repaired to begin with.
True.
But, I don't know what other, I guess we would have to wait to see what those findings were in the report and what the problems were.
Right. Not to mention, think about, okay, what are these masts typically made out of? Right. And then, you probably don't have that just lying around ready to be turned on like a giant lathe or whatever. So, I mean, I would imagine that they've already taken the measurements and tried to order replacements already.
Yeah.
Just think about the logistics of that.
Sure. I'm sure that the ship is very well documented as far as blueprints and schematics. So trying to get those, whatever those measurements are, should be, fairly accessible. But also remember the Coast Guard Eagle was in Curtis Bay Yard a couple of years ago, and they had their mast replaced, and that was a customized, longer term process.
Yes.
So I'm sure
they had that on order, a year or two in advance or something.
Correct.
Now, I'm just throwing this out there. Now, I just came up with this. Now, don't you find it interesting that those masts, I mean, did we ever hear anything? I mean, they've got to be shipped into the Coast Guard yard here locally. And we never heard anything about them coming in on the barge or on like a big truck, or that would have been interesting to see. Right. Oh, here come the masts for the Eagle. Well, she's not going to be here for another 6 months, but the masts are here and they're being stored in this building or whatever. Yeah, that would have been kind of interesting
to know how they did that. Sure.
Right. Hey, so you want to give us an update on the Pride of Baltimore?
Yes.
Oh, cool! I love this map.
Yeah, there's your spaghetti map.
Yeah.
The Pride of Baltimore is docked in Toronto right now.
Oh, okay.
There she is on the map. Right. So, started the journey down here in Maryland, and the last time that we looked at the map, she was in Nova Scotia.
Yeah, and that little small sea town. Remember, that was kind of cool.
And so there was first docked in Brockville and then now in Ontario this week. So she is in Ontario, currently docked at the Toronto Waterfront Festival. And if you go to the Pride 2's website,
oh, there we go.
This is just a screenshot, but they have marine traffic embedded on their website so that you can see at any given moment. This was done this morning, and that she is docked at the festival grounds. So if you want to track the Pride of Baltimore 2, go to pride2.org and believe that there is a menu called Pride is underway, and then you can go and see at any given point where she is at.
Very cool. Very cool.
The next stops. So after this stop in Toronto, she is going to make her way to Minnesota.
Right, Duluth, Minnesota, all the way to the other end of that map. Now, I imagine that's a long run. What is it? It's almost like 2 weeks to get there.
Right.
So I imagine there will be fueling or,
quite a number of locks to also go through.
Right.
So that's going to take some time.
Keep an eye on Pride of Baltimore socials because they do some fantastic videos and things like that to update you where she is at any given time. So back to our Mike was away and Kipp will play segment. You got some cool video from when you were on the William Tate for the buoy placement for the Francis Scott Key buoy ceremony?
Yeah. So there's two clips that I want to show, and after this episode of the podcast, we'll have a video that I have spliced together that includes all of the actions for the day. It was the some of the pictures of us going out to the site, the full narration by the National Park Service, and then another message from the captain of the ship, and then the full placement of what the Coast Guard had to do in order to place the buoy into the water. And so I'm working on all of that together. But I did want to show a couple of videos here, and let me cue those up now so that you can see. This first one is with the National Park Service, and it's about 5 minutes long, but it was a really cool narration and response with the crowd about what Key may have been going through the night of that he wrote the poem.
Yeah, so we have a crew of 24. We're homeboarded out of Philly. Rankin, the James Rankin that normally does this, our sister ship. We work with them all the time, but they just getting some work done, so we got to come down and fill in, and I think that's great.
Cool.
Without anything else there, National Park Service, thank you guys for coming. Can't thank you guys enough. This is great. Presentation for the commission.
All right. Hello, good morning, everybody. How we all doing?
Good
morning.
Cool.
I believe in being a little interactive with this. This is going to be kind of a call and response thing. So we're going to talk for a while, but I need you guys to help me out as we get into the national anthem, okay? So, hello and good morning. I am Robert Stewart. I'm the Assistant Superintendent of Fort McHenry National Monument and Historic Shrine, Hampton National Historic Site, and the Star Spangled Banner National Historic Trail. Before I get started, I want to thank the members of the United States Coast Guard for inviting the National Park Service out here to take part in this special occasion. I also want to thank members of the National Park Service that are here in support of this partnership. So on today, I want to talk about being thankful just for a moment, right? Just being thankful, right? So we can be thankful for many things in our lives. We can be thankful for our families, our friends, and our communities. At Fort McHenry National Monument and Historic Shrine, part of my job is to support the operations of the park so we can tell a story of people who defended their families, their friends, and communities. After reading about the Battle of Baltimore during the War of 1812, everyone, when did the War of 1812 start? Okay, you guys are after reading about the War of 1812, I'm sure Francis Scott Key was feeling thankful on the morning of September 14, 1814, when he wrote the words to our national anthem, the Star Spangled Banner. Now, how many of us here day know the original title of the national anthem was the defense of Fort McHenry. It was after a 25-hour bombardment on September 13th of 1814 that Key wrote the words to that poem in which he described the events that took place. So it's time for some calm response, right? Let me know if you guys know this song. I'm going to start it off, and I need you guys to help me out back and forth, okay? Oh, say, can you see? Which so proudly we hailed
as the twilight's last gleaming.
So Key was talking about the flag that flew over the fort. There were two flags that were made. One was 17 by 25, and the other one was 30 by 42. One flag was lost to history, and the other flag made history and helped us to further form our national identity. All right, a little bit more, right? Whose broad stripes and
bright stars
through the perilous fight. Over the ramparts we watch.
We're so gallantly streaming.
He was talking about the flag, describing the broad 2-foot wide stripes and the bright 2-foot wide stars. All right. And the rockets red, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our
flag was still there.
He was stating that even though he could not see the battle, because he was below deck on a British ship, he knew that the Americans still held the fort because simply the British were still shooting at it, right? He ends the first stanza of this 4-part poem by asking a question. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave over
The land of the free and the home of the brave?
He, like many other Americans, were happy on that moment. Many of them were from different backgrounds. Some free, some enslaved. Some of them being immigrants from other countries that helped defend Baltimore. According to our records, one of every 3 defenders of Baltimore was an immigrant from another country. One of every 4 of the defenders was African American. On the morning of September 14th, 1814, many defenders of Baltimore were located in various parts of the city, and they were looking towards Fort McHenry. Now, how many of us are from the area or know the area well? Some of you might know the area, okay. Some were located that many of us know today. The Lazaretto Battery, now known as like Lehigh Cement, right? Hampstead Hill, now known as Patterson Park, right? Fort Covington and Battery Babcock, now known collectively as Fort Covington. They were looking through their spyglasses. Some of us have binoculars. We have modern days. Oh, yeah, there we go. We didn't plan that, guys. They were looking through their spyglasses Fort McHenry.
This is cool, man.
To see what flag was flying over the fort. Was it the red, white, and blue of the Union Jack, or was it the Star-Spangled Banner? When the skies cleared up, they saw that the flag, our flag, was still there. And it's still there today. In closing, I want to say that I'm glad to be here with you all this morning in this historic place, Fort Chase. To the National Park Service, we often talk about the power of place and how it helps to connect us to historic events. We believe that it was in this area that he would have been when he started to write his poem or come up with the idea. He was thankful that the Americans won the battle. He was able to return to his city and be greeted by many of the defenders of Baltimore as they cheered at the successful defense of their city and nation. This was truly a historic moment. The defenders came together and made history. Now, we are all part of history. We all play a role in helping, once again, our families, friends, and communities become better. We are all defenders, right? Now, some of you might be saying, I'm not Francis Scott Key. I'm not George Armstrong, commander during battle, but we can all still be defenders. In fact, what we're doing right now at Fort McHenry, planning upcoming projects, is that we're all defenders. We're literally all in this together. So on the morning of September 14th, once again, 1814, the defenders came together. They put aside their differences. We didn't know who each other were. They might not have all been friends. But on that morning, as they were looking at Fort McHenry, a triumphant cheer came out from all over the city of Baltimore. They all rallied around one thing. They all rallied around looking at the flag. Many folks were shaking hands. Even that evening, by like 24 hours later, the Star Spangled Banner poem has made its way all around Baltimore, and people were coming together. So in the same way, the Friends of 1814 came together, the same way I want us to come together. So once you shake the hand of a person you don't know, or say hi to a person you do not know. Hello.
That's pretty cool.
Thanks for helping us.
I always ask folks, how many of you have been to Fort McGee? Okay. How many of you have been to the Hampton National Historic Site? Okay, we got it. Okay. So guess what? You're all on the Star Spangled Banner National Historic Trail, 540 miles, sea and land, all that stuff together. You're standing in a national trail right now, making history. Thank you all. Thanks for inviting us.
So that was the that was the speech that the representative from the National Park Service gave. I had some audio problems on my end, so I didn't get to rehear that. But yeah, I think you and the audience were able to hear all of that.
Oh yeah, it was great.
It was a neat little response where he went through, each part of the poem and kind of talked about things, and then there was the audience participation with that, which was so it was pretty neat for a ceremonial presentation for
I loved it.
For that.
Cool.
So that was so we'll splice all of that together. I do have another video, a quick blurb, or a quick blip of a video. I want to show the buoy actually going in.
Nice.
All right. So this is so I'm up on the fly deck of the ship, trying to get a pretty good angle. You can see the key bridge in the background to kind of give that perspective of where exactly we're at. But I'm going to go ahead and hit the play button here. We'll kind of talk through that process. I think that you I think you're able to hear some of the sounds and things.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah. So they had everybody clear off at the lower deck, but some of the observations I found pretty interesting. Right here, at the top of the crane, they had actually painted an old version of the flag.
That's like the 1812 version, yeah.
Yes, but I think that's tied to the fact that they are in Philly, or supporting Philadelphia's operation.
Because I don't think the Rankin has that.
It did not. I
noticed. Okay.
Yeah, I noticed that, and I did also notice that it says Liberty's Keeper on the crane, and on the Rankin it says I think it's
Keeper of the Bay.
Yeah, Protector of the Bay. So I thought that was neat that they had some of those kind of location specific.
And I assuming that's something that they do across the board for all buoy tenders.
That was pretty neat. So what they're actually doing right now is they're going through a safety briefing. So it isn't just, hey, everybody clear off of the deck and we're going to go hit the button and plop the thing in.
Right.
This was a choreographed by process and procedure, step by step. To me, it kind of felt like that this was the process they go through for every buoy placement, and it's not just the special case for the Francis Scott Key buoy. But that's what they're doing at this point, is they're trying to talk through the process. They're trying to explain the situation.
And so when Matt and I were on, just in the lower right-hand corner, see that little ladder there that you can barely see?
Yes.
Yeah. They let us stand on that ladder.
Right here, I believe.
Yeah, to the right of that, just to the right of that. You can, see those
right
two,
there, yeah.
Those two handrails. They let us stand there, so we got like a really up close view. And I'm quite fascinated by how everything's locked down, how they release each part, and then you'll see if you got this part here when they hook this thing up and lift it. it kind of has a mind of its own, and it kind of goes where it wants to go. And I mean, you really need to be careful.
Well, yes, you do need to be careful. They had some spotters in place to be able to manage that, so it wasn't flopping around as much. So, at this point, they've unhooked the crane itself was hooked to the vessel, so that we didn't
storage, right? So the crane doesn't move around,
while underway.
Mm-hmm.
And so they're going through a methodical process here. They got a crane operator who's so you've got people who are placed all along in different points of the vessel to make for observational purposes, to make sure everybody's doing what they're supposed to be doing.
Mm-hmm.
I try to give at least a full representation of how big this production is, with the crane going up in the air in order to make enough space and lift to be able to get the thing up.
Yeah, it is pretty. Now, obviously, they do this operation, I don't know, hundreds of times a year. But when you're there and you see how they do it, it's quite interesting.
Right.
And I mean, like on the camera, we've seen these buoy tenders go by, with several 5 or 10 different buoys on them, as they prepare to change them out for one reason or another. And it's pretty interesting to see that.
Once they get the buoy hooked, they immediately lift it up, and it'll be dangling aboard the ship.
Mm-hmm.
You see they do have a lead here that's tied to it to help kind of keep it from moving around too much.
Mm-hmm.
I also noticed too, you could see the the water moving around. They're also trying to work with their
so they probably have it's a GPS system hooked up to the thrusters, right? Mm-hmm. To the port and stern thrusters that go probably through the hull, and it's hooked up to a GPS, and so that keeps the boat in place, and you don't have to think about it. You just hit a button and it's not moving.
Right. Now, you also saw just a minute ago that took a sledgehammer, knocked away one of the locks holding it down. Now they're pulling all of this different straps down that held it in place.
Right, and it's kind of sitting on like a wooden cradle, right? Or a couple wooden cradles. See,
so I think at this point in the video, it is now
like everybody stands back because everybody knows this thing's got a mind of its own once it comes up.
Correct.
And it's really heavy. They told us how heavy it was at the very beginning, didn't they? I thought they did. Anyway,
it's possible.
You don't want to mess with it.
Right. I mean, and I taken a couple of pictures next to it as we were underway, and just standing alongside of it, this thing's pretty massive.
Right.
Now, you can also, at the lower part of the screen, down here.
And then watch it look, it kind of rotates a little as it comes up.
Yeah.
What were you saying?
It is also attached to this concrete block here, and this thing is massive.
Yeah, that's the anchor, yeah. So, and you were telling me, because you can see right there, that anchor is kind of at water level.
Correct.
Right? When we went out, that anchor was, I don't know, 3 or 4 feet above the water. So they'll lift the buoy up, they'll put it in the water, they unsecure it, right? They toss the chain over the side, right? And then, they'll hit that other thing with the sledgehammer that enables all the chain to go over the side. So now you got the buoy in the water, the chain's in the water, and the only thing you got left to do is turn loose that anchor. Well, it was 3 or 4 feet up in the air, and we were on that ladder, and there was a huge splash because because it actually had to fall a little bit to get into the water, and we were right there on that side of the ship, so it was pretty cool.
Well, this one was quite a bit in the water. It was funny when we were underway. The wake coming off of that thing was pretty pretty massive. Now we weren't going that fast, but it was like,
still,
but
you knew there was something there because the way the water was acting.
And I don't know if you can hear the audio on this one.
Yes, you can hear the chains just.
Yeah, you should be able to hear the chains as soon as it goes. Gets enough space away from the ship. That chain continues on until it gets tight. And you notice everybody is away from that. You don't want to be caught in that because it will take you out.
Right, take you right over, or cut your leg off.
But you can see the pulley system they have in order to maintain the control over it, and we have the one person with the running it from this end, and then you got a pulley system back away from this side.
Okay.
Now they're gonna do a couple of things here to make sure that the lines are all prepared and ready to go for release. And really, it leads right up to them using this guy right here who's got the sledgehammer ready to go. He's going to come over here and pop this last little lock, which is going to send the concrete block in, and then everything's done. So at this point, the only thing that's holding the buoy up is the crane. At this point, they've released everything with the exception of the crane.
And it's not floating yet.
Correct.
Now they're going to put, I think they put like a tether or something on there.
I believe so. I think that's what he's holding on to.
Yeah. Okay. Yep.
And there goes the.
Okay. So the rest of the chain.
That's the rest of the chain.
Not. Yeah.
Then he's about to go and let go of the concrete block.
It is quite fascinating to watch them real time, up close.
Mm-hmm. And on the signal, we finish lowering the buoy into the water, unhook it, and then tap, and that's it. Done. And at that point, the crew went to secure everything on the vessel, and then we were free to go about our business on the ship. So
that was cool.
That was a really neat,
very neat.
So we'll have the full video of all of the events for that day from start to finish. I expect to have that done this week coming up, and then we'll post that coming forward. So
sounds good.
All right, so you got some big Key Bridge announcements.
Yes, we do. So the big announcement is that demo was announced this week. That demo will start on or about July 7th, pending weather adjustments. So that is really exciting. We kind of thought there's some engineers that I know, and we kind of thought that the demo wouldn't start until the build contract was awarded. Something about, if Kiewit winds up start doing the demo and then they don't get the build contract, right? Then I don't know. Then they would have paid for the demo themselves. Or I still don't have a finite understanding of that, but because it kind of doesn't make sense. But
sure.
But this is great to hear that they're actually going to get started on this. So I just wanted to run through some key points as we kind of bring up what led up to this announcement. It's going to take 9 months to do the demo. So no explosives at this point. And just remember, it took the first half of this year to do all the needed pre-construction analysis, which included that, they did 100 different soil samples in different locations as deep as 200 feet just to kind of get an idea. And we got to get a hold of this map. So we'll see it in the video coming up, but it would be really cool to get a hold of that map. Like if there was a PDF of that, where you can see the different colors and the different soil types all the way across from one end to the other. They did investigations for underground utilities. Plus they did wind tunnel testing, scour testing, which is, you've got your support in the water, built into the mud that the whole bridge is on top of. And then as the tides come back and forth, how does the sand or mud react to going around that structure, and does it wind up removing some mud and exposing more of the structure than you had planned, and kind of like undercutting the structure, which would not be a good thing. And then the test piles, remember we talked about this, and I was like, well, why can't they just buy stuff? I can't believe stuff. And I think in the video, they show how big these test piles are. And I think they're as big as you expect, the cylindrical supports to be. And you can see they had to take a piece of steel and roll it into this giant round shape and weld it. So yeah, of course those weren't available, were custom made, but I didn't know that. So, so can we roll that video? Absolutely.
Critical work continues to create a new Francis Scott Key Bridge over the Patapsco River.
The team has been very busy since the start of the project, but especially in the last few months.
Pre-construction activities kicked off in January 2025. MDTA Chief Engineer Jim Harkness says crews have spent a lot of time collecting soil samples from as deep as 200 feet beneath the surface of the water and land. Understanding those subsurface conditions, he says, is vital to designing strong foundations for the bridge.
So each of those 100 locations yields information about the soil type, the soil density, and the soil properties, as well as the depth at which those soils are located.
Crews also conducted surveys and mapped the area to support construction planning.
Just getting the terrain of the existing surfaces, but it also included investigations for underground utilities.
The new design will be Maryland's first cable-stayed bridge. Harkness says his team partnered with a firm called RWDI in Canada to conduct wind tunnel testing.
We conducted modeling of the proposed bridge. We have to understand how a bridge like a cable-stayed bridge is going to react in the wind conditions, given the geometry of our bridge. So we were able to take that model and then test that in the wind tunnel.
Researchers test a model of the bridge foundation to gauge the potential for soil erosion due to flowing water.
Use both computer models for running the mathematics behind the scour analysis, but then they also take that and put it into a large-scale flume so that they can run actual water past it and see how the material is behaving.
Harkness says they've purchased materials for test pile fabrication. Soon, crews will drive steel test piles into the river.
Essentially run tests on those to figure out if they're providing the expected capacity for our bridge foundation. So we'll drive these piles and then we'll set up tests and measure the results.
Keeping the community top of mind, crews inspected more than 1,100 properties ahead of construction.
So we can understand the condition of those properties prior to doing any real construction activity out at the site. We're documenting those conditions, and we worked with property owners. We were able to document that for future use and make sure that we're being good neighbors during construction.
To minimize any potential impact on nearby residents, MDTA crews will install noise and vibration monitoring devices to regularly track sound levels throughout construction.
You wouldn't even know they're there unless you know what you're looking for, but it will give us very good data on the pre-construction levels for vibration and noise, so that we can compare those to the noise levels and the vibration levels during construction to understand if we need to do anything to mitigate any impacts there.
As the summer months carry on, Harkness says so will these pivotal pre-construction activities.
We'll be looking at continuing with additional boring locations. We'll be also working our test pile program and getting that underway this summer, and that'll carry over into early fall. And additionally, we're going to be looking to start the demolition process of the existing bridge. And so we look to have that underway this summer as well.
For the MDTA, I'm Allison Persing.
Cool. So one thing I wanted to add when they were talking about it took the first half of this year to do the pre-construction analysis. In the other video, in the newer video with Bruce, they determined that a location just east of the current bridge center line would be the most economical design to maintain project schedule. You know, and that sounds interesting to me because I have just 5 or 10 more questions, right? Sensing a theme here, Kipp?
Yep.
So supposedly, so just east, remember it was supposed to be like right on the center line. And then for some reason they say the most economical design to maintain project schedule, but I still would love to dive down into the minutia of that reason. But still within the right of way, but enough different that they have to change some of the permitting. So another quite interesting factoid, especially from two hacks who, well, maybe I shouldn't speak for yourself, that know nothing about bridge construction, especially major bridge construction, like something like this. Yeah, so that's the information we have as of right now. Still some great information and a great update. So let me just quickly add this. So I'm driving home Thursday, and my son calls me. Now, he doesn't call me a whole lot. So my son calls me. He says, hey, I got new information about the Key Bridge. I'm like, you do? He says, yeah, they're going to start demo on July 7th. I'm like, what? You know, I was so excited. And then he's kind of funny. He kind of gets like a little quiet, and he says, so would you want to go on camera and talk about it? I said, yeah, sure, why not? And he says, okay, I can be there in 45 minutes. I was like, oh, you want to do this today? And that link is up on the website, up on the press section of the website, with a not so flattering of a still of Mike kind of
I saw the clip, and you know, where they were asked, you know, taking some comments from people, and you know,
mm-hmm.
and then
I know that guy, Mike Brown. So.
Yeah.
But so we're like talking with each other, you know. And so before my son told me that he went to Fort Armistead and talked to Mike Brown, I was like, oh, so you talked to Mike Brown, huh? Right. And he did a good job.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. That was a nice little segment, and
yeah,
you know, we should be getting some followers on the camera then now, because people are going to be back interested in what's happening.
I would think. I mean, we have we have. I'm seeing some new names on there already.
I know some of my staff came to me this week and they were making mentions about it.
All right. So how about upcoming events?
All right. Yeah. So for upcoming events, specifically here in the port, things are a little light right this minute with the summer. However, you do have your Woodwind sailings on History Mondays. And so this Monday, June 30th, you've got your sailing out of Annapolis. And then the corresponding, take a look at what's happening with the John W. Brown and the nuclear ship Savannah. So they do have some dates coming up. I think we'll probably need to compile all those probably on a page that we can put up so everybody can see all of the different dates coming up.
Yeah, that would be cool to have a little display with kind of bullet points. And don't they have another kind of little mini open house coming up that we neglected to put into our schedule? So
Savannah's got some tour dates, and then again, the John W. Brown has some of their excursion dates coming up also. So take a look at that. For the Port of Baltimore history segment, authorized in 1970, the Maryland Department of Transportation began as a principal executive department on July 1, 1971. So we're getting pretty close into July and July 4th this week. The department provides Maryland citizens with a transportation network encompassing aviation, highway, maritime, marine, mass transit, motor vehicle, railroad, and toll facilities. Because of transportation's role in the state's economic development has always been vital, the evolution of Maryland's transportation systems directly reflects Maryland's growth. So,
good old MDOT, which is, let's remember, the Key Bridge is an MDOT facility.
That is correct. So that's our important history nugget for this episode. And that's all I've got.
Cool. So just a refresher, we are Baltimore and Chesapeake Bay Shipwatchers. We have a website with a lot of interesting links to the web camera, to the podcast. We've got a couple of different sites where we sell T-shirts and swag and coffee cups and glassware and some interesting things like that. The website has port maps and just a myriad of information, including press, like old articles that we've done, like TV reports and such. And we're on Twix, Instagram, Reddit, Threads, on a lot of social. Just a reminder, if you're new to the podcast or to the page, give us a like, subscribe, and hit the bell to be alerted to new podcasts as they come available if you're on YouTube.
And if you want to listen to the audio version of this, we are on Spotify and Apple Podcasts.
Yep, sounds good.
All right. We got through a lot, but if by chance you are listening to this and you hear the edits are a little bit more choppy than normal, the recording software site has been giving us quite a bit of difficulty today. We've had to reboot, so I'm hoping that the editing comes out. But
I hope so.
Next week, you and I are both on vacation.
Yes.
So it probably is going to be about 2 weeks before we have another episode podcast come out. However, next week, take a look at the key buoy video that we will send out. So you'll have something to hold you over while we're out on vacation.
Oh, cool. So. Oh, okay, cool. Sounds good.
All right. Ready to count it off?
Yep.
3, 2, 1. Happy shipwatching.
All right, everybody. Thanks for watching and enduring with the edits, and we'll see you in a couple of weeks.